Welcome to this episode of Q&A with Liturgy Man. I'm Taylor Burton-Edwards, Liturgy Man, your Director of Worship Resources with Discipleship Ministries of the United Methodist Church. I'm your apportionment dollars at work to help you strengthen worship and the leadership of worship where you are. Today's question comes to us from two United Methodist pastors, Laura Patterson from Georgia and Hubert Jitcha from Maryland. And they're wondering, how can we make changes in worship that will be effective and not generate a lot of conflict as we do it? It's a good set of questions, and I can't answer their specific detailed questions in their context in a short video like this, but I do want to provide some basic principles that will be helpful, especially for pastors who are starting out new in a congregation at this time of the year and realize there are some things about worship that you probably do want to change. The way I like to talk about this is to say, it's the way you start really matters. You should not start changing worship by announcing, we're going to change worship, or we're going to make a big change in worship. Don't do that. That just raises everyone's concerns and makes people a bit defensive about what they're doing. You don't need to do that. The far better way to do is to actually work below what I call the awareness line first. Make some changes in worship that are not going to be immediately noticed as changes, but will be felt as improvements. What do I mean by that? Well, the first thing to think about is to work on the flow of the worship service without changing any of the content. What are some ways you can work on the flow without changing content? Two principles: no dead time and no distractions. Eliminate dead time. Dead time happens when you have a break of 2 or 3 seconds between pieces of the worship service. Eliminate those breaks. Get people moving so that they're in place and ready to go immediately after the previous thing happens. Make sure your musicians are prepared to move immediately through musical segue from one song to the next if you've got a song set. And then no distractions. Don't call attention to something, now we're going to do this, now we're going to do that. Keep the action flowing. Do not give explanations. Do not say, now we're going to sing this. Instead, just do nonverbal instructions and start doing the next thing. Likewise, if you are the next person who's leading worship, do not say, good morning. That distracts from worship and calls attention to you as the next person. So there are some simple things that you can do, or simply have people stop doing, that will eliminate a lot of flow issues right away, and people will feel like the worship service is going better because it's flowing better. Second level of action that you can think about: you can add something to the worship service that will be received as a good thing without taking anything away at all. And you should always think about adding something good before trying to address anything that is poor. And in a similar vein, what you want to think about is, how do you increase immediate joy in the context of that service? And then over time, you can start thinking about decreasing long-term, long-time sorts of problems or pain about how the service is going. So focus on that. Below the line. You can do these things below that awareness line. People aren't going to notice that there's a big change, but they will feel that it's better. And because they feel that it's better, that will give you the credit, if you will, or the confidence, both internally and from the congregation, to begin to make more substantial changes that people will notice. Substantial changes in how you perform particular worship practices, such as the prayers of the people, or changes maybe even in worship style or music. To go above that line, the first place you want to start, though, is not saying to the whole congregation, we're going to do this. Start with the people who are going to be most immediately involved in those changes. Get them on board with the changes. Take the time to do that. And then once they're on board, and once you've worked out together what those changes will be and the timeline for implementing it, now you've got not just you, but also them as evangelists for the new thing that you're going to be doing, or the change that you're going to be making. And then when you get above that point, that's when you want to signal that you are changing lanes. You signal that you're changing lanes when you're actually fully prepared to do it and you've got some support for it. So how do you make changes in worship? Pay attention to that awareness line. And then once you're above it, build the support systems you need internally so that when you go external, and you need to go external, don't just make changes randomly without telling people, they're more prepared and more excited because they've got more people engaged in the work. I hope this is helpful. Remember, you can always contact me, worship@umcdiscipleship.org, through our UMC Worship Facebook group, or just drop a line here on this page, and perhaps your question will become the basis for a future episode of Q&A with Liturgy Man. May the peace of Christ be always with you.